Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Mina. Welcome to my channel, Mina Reads, and today we're going to talk about all the books that I read in August. In August, I read 14 books, and I have thoughts on a lot of them. But before we do that, I'd like to talk a little bit about today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Book of the Month. The Month is a book subscription box that provides you with a carefully curated selection of 5 books each month, and you can pick whichever one sticks out to you the most, or you can include add-ons if you want. And each month it costs $14.99, and you get a new or early released adult fiction title. I personally have been using Book of the Month for over a year, and I personally really like it. I like that each month you get to pick whichever one you want. And one of my favorite things about this service is that if one particular month the book selections just really don't stick out to you and you don't want any of them, you can very easily skip a month with no charge. So I really love how it's customizable in that way. Adult fiction can cost anywhere from $20 to $30 for hardcovers, so I feel like their price point is really good. And if you're interested in any of these books, you can get your first book for $9.99 with the code SOGOOD, all caps, and the link is in my description below. First book is Anxious People by Frederick Bachman, and I believe this is about a group of people who are stuck in the middle of a bank robbery and they're hostages. Then we have Winter Counts by David Hoska Wanbley Waden. I hope I said that right. This is a work by an indigenous author. It's set on a reservation, and it's about this guy who's kind of like a vigilante. So I believe that this is crime fiction, and it's supposed to be more of a thriller. Then we have Transcendent Kingdom by Jade City. I'm really excited about this. This is the author of Homegoing, which was a book that I really loved a few years back. Then we have The Last Story of Mina Lee. This is an intergenerational novel about a young woman who has a fraught relationship with her mother. She goes away, comes back a few years later, and she finds that her mother has mysteriously died. Last book is Caste by Isabel Wilkerson. So this is a nonfiction about caste systems throughout history and across civilizations and how caste systems work to disenfranchise certain groups of people. If you're interested in any of those titles, be sure to click the link in my description, and yeah, you get your first book for $9.99. Now, on to all of the books that I read this month. I read 14 books. So the first book that I read in August was Me and Somebody's Son by Christina C. Jones. This is a short, quick novella about these two characters, August and Haven, and they used to know each other in college. They had a little crush on each other in college, but it really wasn't their time yet. And so they meet again as adults, and August is working at a flower shop, and Haven works at a bookstore in this wonderful, beautiful black neighborhood, and it's just a really cute, adorable, funny, sexy story about like black love, and I absolutely adored it. I just thought that it was so fun, so funny. Christina is always a hilarious writer to read from. I really love the way that she writes her dialogue and like her comedic scenes, so just obsessed with Christina. So of course I gave this 5 stars. Christina is one of my favorite romance authors. If you've never read a Christina C. Jones book, you should do it immediately. Rectify that. So after reading that, I was on a little kick for something like sexy and short. So I read one of the newest books by Katie Robert, and it's part of her A Touch of Taboo series. So this book is called Gifting Me to His Best Friend, and it's basically exactly what it sounds like. It's about this couple, Emma and Grayson, and they have been married for a few years, and basically they do everything with Grayson's best friend, Derek. Derek goes everywhere with them. They're on this Christmas vacation on this cabin in the mountains, and they're living their best life, and they decide that this year the Christmas present that they want to give Derek is Emma. It's literally just porn without plot. There's like, the plot is that they want to fuck. That's the whole plot. So I can't give it like a solid rating. Like, some of the sex scenes were really hot. I do think it was a little bit too long considering it was porn without plot. There's literally not shit going on but them clapping cheeks. So it did get a bit repetitive after a while. I wasn't obsessed with it, mostly because I wasn't obsessed with Derek, like the friend in question. Nothing about him was like enticing and appealing to me. But like Emma and Grayson, married excellence, I think. But Derek, he was just okay to me. So reading about like their little polyamorous born to love story didn't do all that much for me, but happy for them, you know? So then I buddy read Jade City with Erin from Booked and Busy. If you aren't following Erin, you should. She's amazing, an icon, a legend. Anyway, Jade City by Fonda Lee is an adult urban fantasy novel, and it's set in this island called Kekon, in the city called Janloon, and we follow this clan war between these two clans, the Kauls and the Aites, and basically they are two greenbone clans. And in this world, if you are a greenbone, that means that you possess the natural ability to wield jade. And in this world, in this country of Kekon, they possess a large wealth of bioenergetic jade, which gives you magical powers to people who wield wear it, and Green Bones train all their life to be able to wield Jade. This is basically like a mafia story between these two families over control of the country's jade supply. This series is so incredible, genuinely incredible. I think that if you're interested in like mafia stories, if you're interested in kind of like that crime, criminal underbelly type of storyline, you will absolutely love this. It's so brilliantly done, so interesting. The world building is stunning. Like, what would happen to like the geopolitics of a country where it's controlled by these two clans who are basically like criminals? What would that look like, and what would society be shaped like, and how would like the social hierarchy interact? And it's just interesting seeing these two clans and how they control literally everything in their country. They control the politics, they control international trade industry. It's really fascinating in terms of the world building. The characters are brilliant. The plot is so fast paced, so intense. Constantly I felt like every single chapter felt like a cliffhanger. I felt like I had to know more, and I just think that fashionably is an amazing writer because she really invests you in all of the characters. And we do follow 4 main characters from the Cole family, and we are getting their point of view in this clan war, and it's 4 characters, so she has time to make you care about and love and be frustrated with every single one of these characters, and they're just so amazing. I love them. Lan, Hilo, Shay, and Andin are amazing. My blood for the clan, obsessed with Jade City. You should absolutely read it, and I've talked about it like all over Twitter, all on my Instagram. Like, if you haven't heard me speak about it already, I don't know what to tell you. Read Jade City. If you want brilliant fantasy, read it. If you like stories about like crime and the mafia, read it. If you really want complex family dynamics, read it. If you want to read about Hilo, aka the sexiest man in literature, read it. I have told multiple people that Hilo has jade nipple rings, and that was what convinced a lot of people to read the series. So if that's going to help you, just know that Hilo has jade nipple rings and he treats his girlfriend like a queen. So we love to see it. After that, I was in a little crime mafia mood, I guess. So I read The Hitman by Katrina Jackson, and this is a story about Zara. Zara is a kind of famous PR person, and she is in a relationship with this action star, and they're basically about to get married, and they're having this reality TV special about their wedding. While recording the reality TV special and headed to her wedding the morning of, she discovers that her husband-to-be has been cheating on her with her best friend, and so she goes completely apeshit, and she decides to go on their honeymoon without him, and also she steals his credit cards. And yeah, so she goes on their honeymoon without him, and it's about her in Italy trying to live her best life, failing. She spends a lot of her time crying and drinking wine, and she ends up annoying the absolute fuck out of her hotel neighbor, and this man's name is Giulio. Giulio is a hitman, and he's on his first vacation in his whole career of being a hitman, and he is so sick and tired of his neighbor who keeps crying in the middle of the night. So it's about them interacting as a result of all of this crying that's going on next door. And wow, what a moment. This story is so fun, it's so energetic and hilarious. I genuinely thought that it was really funny and over the top, and it didn't really make a lot of sense. It's definitely insta-love. It takes place over the course of maybe like a week, so there's definitely like some insta-love elements to it, but I love Zara and Giulio so much. They were just so good together. They were so funny, and I was just obsessed with him. He was hot, he was sensitive, he was good at sex, he was a criminal. What's not to love? I ended up giving this 4 stars because I felt like the ending was a little bit abrupt, but overall it was really enjoyable. I would totally reread it. So then I read Caliban's War by James S.A. Corey, and this is the sequel to Leviathan Wakes, which is part of the Expanse series. Okay, so the Expanse series follows humanity hundreds of years into the future, and we have since colonized the solar system, and it's basically about these various human colonies and how they dislike each other and all of the conflict that exists in a society that is so far-flung across the galaxy. It's about how humanity has to force itself to come together despite all of their perceived differences so that they can handle this first contact with alien technology. So in this second book, we are dealing with the ramifications of all of the conflict between these various human factions, and a war has broken out which has caused damage to multiple planets. So we follow a bunch of characters. We follow a Martian Marine, follow a UN politician, and we follow this other character named Prax who is searching for his daughter, and he is a lost homeless refugee. We also follow James Holden, who is a space captain aboard the Rocinante, and he often finds himself in the middle of all of this interplanetary war and strange alien first contact. It was an interesting installment in the series. I definitely thought that it was much slower paced, and it didn't feel as action-packed as the first book did, so it was definitely a bit of a slog for me initially, but I really liked the characters a lot. I really loved the way that the story wrapped up and the way that all those characters storylines kind of intertwined together. So I gave this 4 stars. Definitely would say that it was a little bit slower and a little bit more difficult to get through than the first book, but still enjoyable. So then my Patreon buddy read pick for this month was Teach Me by Olivia Dade, and this book follows 2 characters, Rose and Martin, and they are both teachers at the same high school, and Martin is a new teacher coming in, and he has to share a classroom with Rose, which basically introduces this conflict because he is taking up space in her classroom, and he is also taking one of her classes from her. She teaches like an honors history class or some shit like that, and he is taking this class on from her as like his new workload, and she's a bit bitter about it. So it's basically this like brief antagonism to love story. I personally did not love this. I just was not a fan. I thought it was really boring, overwhelmingly so. I just never came to care all that much about the characters. I never came to care all that much about their relationship, and I felt like the author also wasn't giving me a lot of like character interaction. I felt like there was a lot of the characters thinking about each other and thinking about their relationship or reflecting on past interactions that they had, but it didn't feel like there were a lot of interactions that we as an audience got to be a part of. So I never ended up feeling super connected to them as a relationship or as a couple. So definitely some nice elements within the story. I also thought that it was really nice. There was this moment before the 2 characters like have sex for the first time where they really discuss like their likes and dislikes, which I thought was a really good moment. A lot of romances, when there is a sex scene, it's kind of like the characters just immediately know each other's bodies so well, and they don't need to ask, and immediately it's just like magically they know everything that there is to know about a person's body. And so I thought that it was good to have that kind of discussion. Also, Rose is a plus size woman, and so we got that plus size representation, and so I thought that that was good as well. But like I said, I just wasn't a fan of the writing in this, and I didn't feel like it made me feel super invested in a couple. Also, I felt like the major conflict in this story was stupid as shit. It was so dumb. It all centered around these grown-ass 40-year-old adults being mad about the prom. About the fucking prom. So it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. It wasn't adding up, and I simply did not enjoy it as much as I wanted to. But it was really great talking about it with my patrons. I felt like we just had some good discussions about it. After that, I read 2 comics. I read The Old Guard Volume 1 by Greg Rucka, I think, and this is a story about immortal warriors. This is the comic that the Old Guard, the movie on Netflix, is based on. I really love the Old Guard movie, and the Old Guard movie is basically exactly the same thing as the comic, like down to lines of dialogue being exactly the same. So I think that if you enjoy the movie, you'll probably enjoy the comic. I personally am giving the comic 3 stars because I did not enjoy the art in it. It was very dark, and I felt like it was kind of difficult to follow the action within the comic, so I wasn't a fan because I felt like the panels, though they were like mostly beautifully drawn, I just felt like I couldn't see anything, so it was hard to follow along. So then after that, I ended up reading Sleepless. Sleepless is about these 2 characters, Cyrenik and Poppy. Poppy is a lady at court, and basically her father was the previous king, and her father has died, so she is currently in the court of the new king, and this is a kind of dangerous and tumultuous place for her to be. So she has her loyal bodyguard Cyrenik, who is a sleepless soldier, which is like a magically enchanted soldier. He never sleeps, and he is constantly there vigilantly protecting her. I thought that this was really fun. I really loved the art in it. It was gorgeous, absolutely stunning. Love the relationship between Poppy and her bodyguard. It was really interesting, full of lots of tension, and I think that the next volume will have lots of sweet, wonderful romance goodness. A lovely experience. I absolutely adored it, and I gave it 5 stars. So then I ended up reading An Ember in the Ashes and Torch Against the Night by Saba Tahir. We follow these 2 characters, Laya and Elias. Laya is a scholar, and the scholars are a part of an oppressed group, and they have been oppressed by the marshals for a number of years, and they are constantly enslaved and raided by the marshals on a daily basis. And on one such raid, Laya's family is murdered, and her brother is taken to a prison, and so we follow Laya trying to get her brother back, trying to find out what prison he's in, how she can get him out, and all of the things that she's willing to do to get her brother back and to save him. So we see Laya head into this martial training school for soldiers, and she is trying to get the information that she needs that will help her locate her brother. And in this martial training school, we find Arlias, our other protagonist, and he is a soldier, a part of the martial empire, but he absolutely hates it. He grew up outside of the martial empire, and so he was able to develop a sense of empathy, and he really doesn't buy into the propaganda of the martial empire. He really believes that the martials are wrong, so he is attempting to run away from the empire, and so we see him as a conflicted soldier and a part of this imperial power, and how much he hates his role in that. And we see Laya trying and struggling to save her brother, and how these two stories intersect. And in the second book, A Torch Against the Night, we follow these same characters kind of on this same journey, but we also introduce the point of view of Helene, who is Elias's best friend, and Helene is also a soldier in the martial empire, but she is not as morally conflicted as Elias is. Rather, she is fine with the empire. She doesn't find there to be anything wrong with their colonialist, imperialist ways. She feels like they are the more deserving group of people. So Helene is a very different kind of character to Elias, but we still see Helene has her own struggles politically. And I think that Helene is a very interesting character. I don't like her, but I think she's a brilliant character, and I thought that her sections in Torch Against the Night were some of the most intriguing sections of the book. She's like a good character to have in the story, even if I don't love her. While I do like the plot, I feel like it's really fast-paced. I think the characters are interesting, and I think that the second book has definitely strengthened my enjoyment of the series. I would like to see a little bit more from the magic. I would also like to see a little bit more from the world building, but overall it's been an enjoyable series, and I'm excited to read the next book. So then I read The Nanny, which is also by Katrina Jackson under her pen name Brandy Bush, and this is about this woman. I can't even remember her name. This story for me, as much as I love Katrina Jackson, was not my favorite from her. I just didn't. For me, the characters were not all that memorable, and the storyline wasn't all that memorable. It's basically about this woman and her family. She's a part of like a polyamorous family unit. She has two husbands, and they have some kids together. She's a grad student, and she's very, very stressed. First section of the story, it is like a novella. The first section of the story, we're following her literally as she goes to pick up her children from school. So we're following her do all that, and then we basically are digging into some of her insecurities about her family. Basically, she feels like other people, when they view their family unit, they don't see her as a part of it, and they kind of view her as just like the nanny, and she kind of hates that. So for some reason, it puts her on this like whole thing where she wants to have another child, and she's like really passionately like trying to ask her husbands to have another kid with her. And I'm gonna be honest, it didn't really make all that much sense. I didn't really get it. It was like, you guys are already married. Like, you're already married, you already have two children. You being pregnant again is not going to change anything. So I didn't really understand like her motivations, to be honest. I didn't get it. Didn't leave all that much of an impression on me, and it was kind of just like, I don't know, but I read it. So then I read Slippery Creatures by KJ Charles. This is a historical pulp mystery type novel with a little bit of romance thrown in. So this is about this main character named Will. Will, darling, he is a veteran of the Great War, and he has finally returned home, and he meets with his long lost uncle essentially, and his long lost uncle basically passes away really quickly after their first meeting, but he leaves Will with his bookshop. So Will has now become a used bookstore owner, and he's just trying his hand at, you know, his new job, trying to make his business flourish, when all of a sudden people start coming in and asking him cryptic questions like, where's the information? Where are you hiding it? And so Will has to figure out, what the hell do these people want, and what the hell are they talking about? So Will becomes embroiled in this secret plot, and I personally think that Will is an icon. I loved him. He was so funny to me, and he was very stubborn, and I think that his stubbornness is really what like drives the plot, and I just loved him. I just thought that he was a really good character. Beyond that though, I didn't think that the mystery itself was all that interesting. I felt like I was never engaged in the mystery, and there's another character in this story named Kim, and Kim is a very interesting person. Kim ends up helping Will on his journey to figure out what the hell the information is and who the fuck these people are and why they keep harassing him about this information that he knows absolutely nothing about. So Kim is basically this good Samaritan that pops in to help him solve the mystery, and Kim is a very interesting person. And to be honest, I can't stand Kim. Kim, we don't fuck with him.
Yeah, he's terrible, Your Honor. He's really terrible.
That also impacted the way that I felt about the story, because there is a little bit of a relationship between Kim and Will, and Kim just sucked. He fucking sucked. But I think that if you like historical settings, you will probably enjoy this. I really liked it for the historical setting. I enjoyed the writing style. I thought that like the old-timey British humor was cool. And like I said, I really loved Will as a character. But like Kim, didn't fuck with him. And the mystery was a little bit lackluster. But it was still like enjoyable. So I gave it like 3.5 stars. So then I read You Had Me at Ola by Alexis Daria. And this was one of the most disappointing reads of the year for me, because I was exceptionally excited for this. I've been excited about it for months. So You Had Me at Ola, we follow these two characters, Jasmine and Ashton, and they are both working their way up in the TV entertainment industry. And so Ashton, he is a very prolific telenovela star, and Jasmine, she has recently won an Emmy, or she's recently been nominated for an Emmy on daytime TV. So she's like a soap opera star, and she's making her grand debut on like a regular serialized drama on this streaming platform. And it's really important to them that they kind of land this mainstream audience, because they both are trying to grow their careers in more so the more serious direction that they've always wanted to go in. And basically, we follow Jasmine and Ashton, and they have this really disastrous first meeting, and how that awkwardness kind of permeates their whole working relationship, and how that goes from awkwardness to them like being in love and stuff. I personally did not like this book. I wasn't all that attached to the characters, and I felt like they were just immensely frustrating human beings. And I also felt like there wasn't all that much time where the characters were in a like decent place where they were talking to each other and like interacting and stuff. It felt like most of the story was taken up by a lot of awkwardness and avoiding each other in the beginning of the story, partially because Ashton is intensely private due to some trauma that he has over an incident that occurred, and I desperately wanted him to get therapy on page, and he does end up getting therapy, but it's like one sentence in the end of the book, which pissed me off. I really wanted to see him getting therapy really badly, because I thought that exploring his trauma could have been such an interesting portion of the book, but we explore his trauma, but not in a like healing way. I would have loved to see him getting therapy like throughout the story. That would have been iconic. But I just felt like these characters, they just all had worms for brains. It was just so many portions of the story where I felt like I couldn't understand the characters' reasoning. Like their rationalizations didn't make that much sense to me. They were constantly doing stupid shit that didn't make any sense. I felt like they barely interacted with each other. And when they were interacting, it was cute, and there was like some cool sex scenes. There's this one sex scene though where the author refers to the woman's vagina as her sheath, and that was like disgusting. And I died laughing when I read that shit. Like, that's not sexy. Calling a woman's vagina a sheath is never going to be cute. That shit was weird. Anyways, beyond that, I didn't feel all that much chemistry between the characters. I felt like there was an awkwardness to the story that was supposed to be there, because it was part of like the conflict, and I mean it was part of like who the characters were, particularly who Ashton was as a person, and a part of their like conflict, whatever. I just didn't care. It was just ugh.
Oh my God, who the hell cares?
So a very sad 2 stars for me. And the last thing that I read in August, technically I finished it at like 12 a.m. on September 1st, but I'm counting it for August. Don't at me. So basically, I read Birthday Shot by Rousey Adams, and this is about these 2 characters, Shay and Kofi, and basically this is a my brother's best friend kind of stories. Shay has had a crush on Kofi for a long time, since she was young. The character's like in their 30s now, and she had a crush on him since childhood, and basically it's about her. It's her 30th birthday, and she's willing to get it on and poppin', and so her and Kofi end up having this tryst in the bathroom at her party, and it's very iconic, very hot. I think that Rousey Adams writes amazing smut. This book is so sexy, and I really loved it. I thought that Shay and Kofi, they had really natural, really sweet chemistry. I really enjoyed this. I thought that it was a fun time. I thought that it was really sexy. I thought that Kofi, low-key, man of my dreams, he's a legend. And Shay, she's like an influencer, and she's like a beauty influencer or whatever, and I thought that that was iconic. I really love seeing that. I always love seeing like when somebody's a YouTuber in a book. I don't know why, but I don't know. Narcissism maybe. Anyway, it was pretty lit and I really liked it, so I gave this 4 stars. So yeah, that's all of the books that I read this month. Did you read any of these books? Do you have any thoughts about any of these books? Please let me know. And if you don't have any thoughts about any of those books, let me know what was your favorite book that you read this month. Do feel free to leave me this emoji if you made it to the end of the video. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. And a special thank you to all of my wonderful patrons.